Welcome to Recalculating Small Business. Like its award-winning book, Recalculating is dedicated to small business in America. Your hosts are Don Mazzella and Dan Perkins. Don Mazzella is the editor-in-chief of the Small Business Digest. Dan Perkins is a registered investment advisor with 43 years' experience in managing money.
Dan Perkins here, your co-host, along with Don Mazzella of Recalculating for Small Business. Our radio program is dedicated to you, helping the small business owners increase their profits. We draw our name from Recalculating, voted the best small business book of 2017 by the Independent Press. In this book, it features ways to grow your small business. Now, here's Don Mazzella.
I'm Don Mazzella. My co-host, Dan Perkins, is on assignment, but we have a really interesting guest today, Tom Shorma. He's the CEO and president of WCCO Belting in North Dakota, and is here to talk about exporting. He belongs to a fairly unique organization. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's got some other hints for small business. Tom, welcome to the program.
Don, I'm very happy to be here. See if I can share some of our experiences.
Well, that's what this program's about. But Tom, before we go further, tell us a little bit about your background personally. Then a little bit about your company, a little bit about your organization, and finally your website.
All right. I am the CEO, president of a company called WCCO Belting, which is a family business that my father started back in 1954. I joined the organization as the CEO in 2001, and frankly, it was a small, about 30-employee company, and it was exclusively selling products into North America. Those products were basically rubber conveyor belts for farm equipment. At that time, one of our board members of this small company, an advisor, he was having some success selling into some foreign markets, and he suggested maybe I look into doing some of the same. So back then, there was no Google or internet information like there is today to try to find some new customers in new countries. So we did it the old-fashioned way. We went to those countries. We went to farm shows. We made phone calls. We beat the street, as they say, to find some new markets because we didn't have any other way. We didn't know any other way. Well, as a result of those efforts, we've had some good success, and we're now exporting our products, rubber conveyor belts for farm equipment or industrial equipment, into more than 20 countries. And as I said in the beginning, sending products across borders, we kind of relied on our own, what small businesses can relate to is a can-do spirit that you just try to, learn on the job. You just wing it. And it was an approach that, for our concerns, definitely produced a few bumps and bruises early on, but we had to learn on our own and do what we had to do as far as shipping product outside of the country. Of note to the listeners, today it's a much easier journey than it was for us back then. We did it on our own. Today, when I talk to people about exporting, I like to say that it's easier to do it, easier to find a new customer in Argentina today than it is in Arkansas. And I say that because of all the state and federal help that's out there. One of the organizations that I am now part of is a group called the District Export Council. And the District Export Council is a group of volunteered, seasoned exporters, nonprofits from every state that are available for you to call and ask for advice. So it's a resource that we never had. And today there's also an organization that we've become aligned with, the District Export Council aligned with, and that's called the U.S. Commercial Service. And it has more than 100 domestic and foreign offices that are out there to help those companies looking to export for the first time so that they can avoid some of the mistakes that we made early on when we were doing it on our own. And so we support the commercial service, who does a lot of that initial research for companies that are trying to figure out, well, where do I go first? How do I find prospective customers? What about the language differences? all those different types of things. And then the third part of it is every state, just about every state, I think, in the country has a state trade office that you can also call and ask for help. So between those three different organizations, the District Export Council, the U.S. Commercial Service, and the state trade offices, now you have places to go to ask the questions, what makes it really easy to become an exporter.
Well, that's really terrific. But before we go further, what's your website for your company?
The website for WCCO Belting is just that, WCCOBelting.com, www.WCCOBelting.com.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start a question. So you
Sure.
provide rubber belting for farm equipment. Do you just do that, or have you expanded your belting operation to other parts?
We have definitely expanded that. We do supply belting to farm equipment all over the world, but in addition to that, we're doing a lot of custom-made products for industrial applications. In layman's terms, I guess we say we make the rubber conveyor belts that the really big companies don't want to do. And then we do the belts that the really little companies or competitors can't do. We're kind of somewhere in that middle. We use advanced technology, but it's all made on an order-by-order basis.
Well, I guess my question is, how could a company in North Dakota compete with a local company in countries 2 or 3 or 10,000 miles away?
Well, that's always a challenge. You have to have exceptional service. You have to first build your strategy, make sure your service is in a position where it can compete, and provide a quality product that is difficult to get elsewhere. You have to provide them a reason to purchase from you versus someone that perhaps might be in their own country. We do that through differentiation, engineering, and providing services that follow up the product that we provide.
Well, I have to tell you, when we originally first talked about having you on the program, I looked you up and I talked to somebody who's much smarter in these things, and they say you're a fairly unique company because you could literally customize anything to fit any application if necessary, and that seems to be a highly specialized niche. But yet, a lot of people are providing a commodity product. Can the three organizations that you've mentioned, can you help in the commodities with someone who's got something that's not as specialized as you have?
Yes, absolutely. In our case, our model is such, and it certainly can be emulated by others. When we go into a customer, typically our competition will put out a catalog of products that they make a standard of stock. Pick from one of these, they say. When we go into a customer, we say, here's our capabilities. What do you need? And I'll make it. It's just a different model. But no matter what product that you make, by going to the people that understand those markets, like the U.S. Commercial Service, they will literally take your catalog and your products. They will put them do the research and put them in front of prospective buyers in those countries. They will then interview those prospective customers for you on your behalf to make sure there's a viable potential partnership. Once they get that all lined up for you, literally the commercial service, if you're asking them to do this for you, will line up the meetings for you. They'll line up someone to translate if necessary and even help you figure out ways logistically to get the product there. So this can be for a custom product, but it can certainly be for a more typical, quote-unquote, commodity product as well.
Wow. Well, your group is a volunteer, but the commercial group, that's the second group. I mean, is it a government agency? Is it a private agency? Obviously, the third group is a government agency, but what is the second group? Are they private
Well,
or?
This never ceases to amaze me. Even much larger, seasoned CEOs, presidents, often when I'm talking to them and trying to promote exporting, I tell them well, have you talked to the local commercial service office? And they don't know what it is. The United States Commercial Service is an organization that is there to help U.S. companies export. We pay for it with our tax dollars. That's what their primary role is to help those companies not exporting learn how to export, to find prospective customers, to qualify them, and to help them. We're already paying for it. In many cases, the services that they provide, and again, there's every state in the United States has a U.S. Commercial Service office except one, but every state has one. You can call your state office of the Commercial Service and say, I'm looking to export. Can you tell me the best places where my product might fit? Can you potentially find prospective customers for me? And that's what they do. And in many cases, it's free. Well, free in the sense that we're already paying for it with our tax dollars.
That's truly amazing, Tom. I'm sitting here. I pride myself in knowing a lot of things about, and quite frankly, I had never heard of this group until you mentioned it.
You're not alone. I didn't know about it until 10 years ago.
And so, if nothing else, we've hopefully with our audience awakened at least one or two minds. We've now reached 1 million listeners for our shows, so we feel pretty good that we can perhaps spread the word. But Tom, let me, by way of explaining, you're in 20 countries. Can you, for instance, are you in China?
Well, we are an exporter to 20 countries, but we also import some of our raw materials from different countries as well. I like to say we're really a company that's involved in global trade. Now, everything that we sell, we manufacture here, but our raw materials may come from other countries. We actually source some of our raw materials from North America, but we source them from China, India, and other places as well. Because, again, we're involved in global trade, and we have to source from the best of the world in order to compete with the best of the world.
Well, you're in North Dakota. I guess, why aren't you closer to one of the coasts, or what makes you stay centered in North Dakota?
Well, we're here because this is where my father was born and raised and started the business. We do have a satellite organization that's located in Arlington, Texas. That gets us a little bit farther south and able to service, other countries from another location. But frankly, the majority of our product that we export comes out of North Dakota. And we're about as far away from the oceans of the world as you can be and still be in the United States. But we're still able to compete.
Right. Well, obviously, one of your big components is logistics, getting supplies in and product out. Do you do it mostly by trucking? Do you do it mostly by rail? Is it a combination of rail, trucking, and sea, or
yeah,
do you also...
it's really it's really a combination of all the above. We do some LTL, less than truckload shipments, to some companies, customers around the world, but a lot of our product does end up in consolidated containers. Those containers travel by rail, and then they're loaded on a ship, and they're ultimately then delivered to the customers in those 20-plus countries.
Yeah, I'm surprised President Trump hasn't identified you. Here in the Northeast, we seldom hear about companies like yours, which are really the backbone and really are doing what is necessary to balance the trade. But Over the last 4 or 5 years, what have been the trends that you've seen that have been positive for you and for the country, and some that have been negative?
Well, the world still really wants U.S.-made product. There is no better place, there's no better quality than what's made in the United States. Our manufacturing industry in the U.S. is second to none, whether that's a 3-person organization, 3,000-person organization. U.S. manufacturing makes a great product, great engineering, and high quality. So we can compete on that. The challenges continue to be up and down over time. Currencies vary. Some people ask, well, how do you deal with different, the valuations or differences in U.S. currency? We actually sell all of our product based on U.S. dollar. You don't have to sell it based on the currency of the country that you're selling into. Sometimes that is to your advantage, and frankly, sometimes it's to your disadvantage. The other side of it that we've had to deal with, and it's a challenge and it's a discussion point that's going on today, is the trade situation, particularly with China. But it's not only with China. We have to deal as an exporter with tariffs in many of these countries. So our product not only has to be at least equally priced, it has to be equally priced plus the addition of a tariff, or with the addition. So we have to deal with what we consider unfair trade, in that our product going into these countries is assigned a duty, even though there's no one in that country that can even make our product. In some cases, that our product coming back into the United States on a piece of machinery where it's installed on has zero duty. So we sell to a country with a duty on it. It's installed on a machine, and it comes back into this country with no duty on it. That creates an imbalance of trade, a trade deficit, and frankly, it's not fair trade. And those are some of the things that are causing the turmoil, those uneven differences, as they will, that are going on in the world today. And we have to deal with it. It's a reality.
I never heard it said better than what you just said. We send a product out that's affected by a tariff they put it on a product that they bring to us, which we don't put a tariff on. I just think that's. I've never heard it in all my years said so succinctly.
Well, let me put it this way: an unnamed country that we sell our product into successfully applies a 40% duty, 40, and we can still compete. When that product's installed in the machine and comes back into the United States, there's a zero duty. So now, if you were a government collecting 40% duty and paying none, why would you come and negotiate with the United States to balance trade? You got nothing to gain. The best thing you can do is be invisible and not talk.
Right.
And that's where we're in today. Nobody wants to talk to us because they're on the upside. They're gaining. They're gaining duties. Free trade agreements are a great equalizer, and that's something that the U.S. has done more effectively in recent years. But there's a lot of countries where we're paying great duties and charging them none, and it's just not fair trade.
Absolutely. This is not a political program, but one to elicit help for small business. And on that, Tom, I would like you to repeat those how the three organizations you mentioned, because I want to make sure that our audience knows about them, if you don't mind.
Be happy to. To be successful in exporting, you have to know who is there to help. Each state has an organization called the District Export Council, or the DEC. Those are seasoned exporters that are there to advise and to mentor and to help and promote exporting. The second organization is a federal organization, a national, international organization with more than 100 domestic and foreign offices, and that's called the U.S. Commercial Service. They are there to do that initial research, to help line up potential customers and to help you overcome some, perhaps, of those importation barriers. And the third organization is your state trade office. It may operate under a different name. It may be under your own Department of Commerce. But by and large, every state has a representative or an organization in it that can help you find foreign markets or perhaps attend a trade mission with other new to export in order to develop new and identify new prospective customers.
Wow, that's a mouthful. A link to your to those websites will be on recalculating.biz tonight when this program goes live. But Tom, let me ask you, as a small business owner, you mentioned South Dakota has the lowest unemployment rate. North Dakota,
well,
sorry.
It's actually North Dakota, but it's close.
No, I was going to say North Dakota. Sorry.
Yep. No problem.
But how do you compete to attract the talent that you need?
Well, it's a national issue right now to find skilled workforce. One of the things that we've been able to do successfully is to develop a workforce that reflects our business philosophy of global trade. For example, within our 200 employees in North Dakota alone, they can speak 14 different languages. We have people from multiple cultures, multiple countries working in our workforce here in North Dakota. And it's a small rural community. This isn't, Minneapolis or New York or Chicago. But we've been able to bring in people, recruit people from different backgrounds to be part of our organization. Now, because we do things uniquely and manufacture product uniquely to how others do it, we have to train them ourselves. No one walks in off the street and knows how to operate the machines and the processes that we use. We literally have 50 different classes that we put our workforce through on an entry level in order to increase their skills from perhaps entry level to being that of a skilled workforce. We're combating it by bringing in what we call great people and simply training them the way that we need them trained, rather than simply wait back for people to walk in the door and say, okay, I need a job.
We're talking with Tom Shorma. He's president and CEO of WCCO Belting in North Dakota. What town are you in, and how do you convince people to move to a rural town in North Dakota?
Well, that is a challenge. We are in the very southeast corner of North Dakota. The community is called Wahpeton, Wahpeton. It is a community right on the Minnesota border. And what we offer here, different than perhaps a lot of places, is not a job. We ask our people when they come in and they're introduced to the workforce, we ask them if they're here for a job. And if they say yes, we say wrong place. You can go out the door. If you're here for a career, because we will invest in you so that you can have a career, increase your skills, take care of your family in a safe family environment of a community. That's how we keep them. So fortunately, we're not looking for thousands of employees every week. We have less than 3% turnover of our workforce annually in a manufacturing organization. So when we find great people, we hire them even if we don't have an opening. And then we train them on the skills that we require. And that allows us to be competitive. Wow.
You sound like what America was after World War II. And I'm 75, so I remember some of that. And, I'm sitting here a little bit open-mouthed because we don't hear many of those stories. All I hear about is the digital world and how kids want to progress and have 3 or 4 jobs in 2 years. And here we have somebody saying we want people that want to build a career. Do you get young people to come?
We do, but it's those people that like making things, that like doing things with their hand, making a product, seeing something physical being created, and then know that it's being sold around the world. We actually have an employee that just hit 45 years with our organization. It's the only job he's ever had. It's the only position, the only career he's ever had. On his 40th anniversary, we surprised him with an anniversary gift. He started with us on December 1st, 1972. On December 1st in 2012, we presented him with a 1972 fully restored Corvette car. That's how you retain people. You reward them, you appreciate them, and you train them. You give them an opportunity for growth and to be able to raise their family in a very nice community.
It sounds that way. I'm sorry, I'm too old. I'd come and join. I'd try to join you. Many of us search all our lives for that. That's the sort of environment. Let us go back because you're here to talk about something that's extremely important. Would you mind once again repeating for our audience those three organizations that we've been talking about for the last 20-odd minutes? This is radio, and this is the repetition is the best way of getting people to remember it.
I understand, and as I said earlier, we've made the mistakes. It was difficult when we started, but today, the most important things to know if you want to export is know that there's places to go to get help. And in many cases, it's free help. It's people that want to help you learn how to effectively export without making the mistakes. State level, each state has what's called a District Export Council or a DEC. And those are volunteers in a nonprofit that are there to promote exporting. They're seasoned exporters that have already made the mistakes. They want to help you export so that you don't make the same ones. But before even that, you go to the U.S. Commercial Service, a federal organization that is paid for with our tax dollars. That's the first stop when you're looking to find new foreign markets. They can provide most of the services that an organization will need to help a business identify top markets for its products. Their options or services range from research projects to an organized trip like a trade mission to a country with prearranged prospect meetings. Again, that is a U.S. Commercial Service, and almost every state except one has an office in their state that they can call. The third one is their state's trade office. It may be part of their Department of Commerce of the state. I don't know which organization it is within a state government, but typically a state government will have a representative that can help kind of connect the dots and put people together. So if you don't know where your District Export Council is or how to contact them, you might be able to find that out through your state's trade office. So those are the three keys: the District Export Council, the U.S. Commercial Service, and your state's trade office.
We've been talking with Tom Shorma. He's CEO and President of WCCO Belting. Tom, your website again for people, and if they want to talk to you directly, is there any way they can call or email you?
You can certainly reach me through our website. It is www.wccobelting.com. And if they Google search WCCO, they'll find us. And all of our contact information is there. I mentioned the District Export Council, the North Dakota DEC. I am actually chairman of that. So I am one of those volunteers in our team that is out to promote and help other companies learn how to export and or put them in contact with others that can also help them. So that is part of our commitment as a nonprofit, is to be part of the DEC, and people can reach me through our website.
Tom, thank you so much. This is probably one of the most informative shows I've done in a long time, and I really want to thank you for joining us. As I say, a link to your website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other program. Tom, thank you so much I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Don, for having me, and let's see if we can get some more people exporting around the United States.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, "If you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there," is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
I'm Don Mazzella, and my co-host Dan Perkins is on assignment, but we have, I guess we could say, is funny. He's been a funny man. He has a terrific new book and some really great ideas. Jeff Kreiser, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Jeff, we're going to start by asking you a little bit about your background, a little bit about your book, and finally a website that people can go to.
Sure. Well, after getting a degree in economics and then a law degree, I did the traditional next step of becoming a stand-up comedian, as you mentioned in the intro. And I spent a lot of years doing political humor. And then I ended up having an opportunity to write a business and finance humor column for TheStreet.com, which is Jim Cramer's website, the Mad Money guy. And through that, I then got a chance to write my first book, which was a satire called Get Rich Cheating. And I emphasize it was a satire. It was a fake how-to, and I looked at everything from Enron and WorldCom to stolen elections and the steroids and things in show business. And through that, then a professor of behavioral economics, a man by the name of Dan Ariely, who some of your listeners may know from his book Predictably Irrational and others, he got a copy of that book, invited me to speak to his students at Duke Business School, and we started a relationship, and I learned about his field of behavioral economics, also known as behavioral science, and then we worked together to publish my most recent book called Dollars and Cents, as in common sense, how we misthink money and how to spend smarter, which is all about the psychology of money and why we make the common mistakes that we do and what we can do about it. And then the last step so far is after that book, I now run a website called peoplescience.com. That's peoplescience.com, which is all about applying behavioral science to the modern marketplace. It's applying these principles of psychology and economics that have been tested and thought out and pursued by academics to workplace engagement, to loyalty, to habits, to financial and health decision making. And it's a fascinating field that I didn't know about, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, but I've learned to embrace. And there's some incredible work happening now, and I really feel like the future of business, both large and small, may be hidden in this field. So that's where we are now.
And your website?
peoplescience.com.
Well, say it a little slower so people can hear it again.
peoplescience.com.
Well, in preparation for this our talk, just recently the Wall Street Journal had an article and said that if you tell me the shirt where you bought your shirt, I can tell you how you voted in the last election, and saying that if a person I'm trying to remember the outdoor company in Maine, like Duluth, but not. If you bought it from them, you were Republican, and if you bought a designer shirt, you were a Democrat. Is that some of the, in a very simplified form, what you're talking about?
I don't know that particular article, so I can't speak specifically, but the idea that our behaviors are often shaped by our identity, and the way that we make value decisions can be informed by things like, they say the wisdom of the crowds or the lack of wisdom of the crowds, social proof. I mean, if we're identify with a certain group of people and we consider those people our tribe, and they all shop at XYZ store, or they all drive a certain car, we may be more inclined to maintain our identity by fitting in with that herd mentality. So there's some elements there. Again, I don't know the specific article, so I can't, but that's part of it, like why we make the decisions that we do.
Yes, well, I really want to get into that because small business owners continually say, how can we compete against these big stores with their big data analysis, etc. And I'm gathering that you, in some fashion, try to provide some identity markers for people. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big areas where this can benefit smaller businesses is building up real loyalty with their customers and their clients, because we all sort of want to identify with a group, and we want to feel proud and have a strong connection with the products and brands that we use, and want them to reflect who we are, particularly if they're seen by others. And when we make decisions in general, purchasing decisions, particularly, we look for the easy solution. Like making a financial decision is really challenging. You have to think about the opportunity costs and everything else you could do, and it's just a lot to do. There's choice overload, and so if we have a shortcut that we can take for our mind and our emotions, we'll take that. And if there's loyalty to a particular brand or product, that tends to create an emotional bond between the brand and the consumer, which really overrides the brain's default desire to go through another more complex rational analysis, if you will. In other words, if there's that brand loyalty and I'm making a choice like what shirt to buy or what product to order, I'm going to go with the one that I already feel connected to, regardless of any other factors, because that's an easy decision. I already feel connected to it. So small businesses have some advantage to build that. Larger businesses also recognize this. Airlines have loyalty programs, rental car companies, hotels. But I think that the small businesses that are really in touch with their community and really can know what identity that community has can really play into that with the specific types of loyalty programs and community building of their own. So that's one area where small businesses can benefit from some of these insights.
Can you give another area? That was a great one. So if you have another, please continue.
Well, the book, the Dollars and Cents book, is a lot about financial decision making. Why people make the financial decisions that they do. Often they're not good ones. We will fall for a sale price because we think we're saving money, even though we're not saving anything. We're still spending money. Or we fall for brand names when the generic product is just as good, but we are feel like the brand has a higher value. And there's all these sort of lessons. And I think that small businesses can look at the lessons of financial decision making in two different ways. One is the financial decisions that their customers and clients are making. And if we understand why our customers and clients are choosing to either not buy our product or service, or they are coming to us, then we can sort of shore up the weaknesses that we have, and we can build upon the strengths. And so if we understand how sale prices affect people, how brand names affect people, how the display of effort affects people, we can connect better with them. So understanding the customers and clients is a great way. And then the second aspect of that is small businesses themselves are constantly making financial decisions. They're hiring, accountants, and they're hiring employees. Excuse me. They're investing money. They're borrowing money, and these are all challenging financial decisions. And often the most challenging ones are the ones where we make the poorest choices. So if we understand the forces that impact us as we go to get a small business loan, or as we go to, find a payroll provider, we're going to be in a better position to make a better choice.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, near my house is a billboard that says we spend more time planning how we're going to spend our football Sunday than we do planning our retirement. Every time it passes, unfortunately it's too late for me, but every time I pass it, I think about it and I realize how true that is. Especially amongst the younger people. But let me so you also say brand loyalty is still an important part of the decision making, in your view.
So it is one of the factors that can impact people's decision. When they don't have another way of valuing what something's worth, they will look to brand recognition. Like an easy example is people might be more inclined to buy Tylenol than the generic acetaminophen, which even though that acetaminophen is the exact same product, but that Tylenol has a brand connected to it, and people think that there's some quality in there, there's some value. In fact, so much so that generic brand, you'll often see, like if you go to a CVS or your local drugstore, it says printed on there, compare ingredients to Tylenol. But the point is it's really the same product, but one has this brand that if we're uncertain about the quality of something, we're going to just go to that emotional connection that brand provides us and believe it's better. The same is true for any other product like restaurants and other services. If there's a connection to that brand that makes us think that it's the right choice, either we made that decision before or we've heard good things about it, that's going to sway us.
We're talking with Jeff Kreiser. He's got a terrific new book. Jeff, your title, the book's title, and where people can get it?
It's Dollars and Cents, How We Misthink Money and How to Spend Smarter. And they can get it in bookstores. It's out now in paperback or online. You can visit your favorite online shop or your favorite local small business bookstore. It'd actually probably be the preference here. It's available all over.
Well, that's another thing. Before I ask you for another, I just want to tell you, it came up this weekend. When I was growing up, you were either a General Motors family or a Ford family. And people never thought to buy outside the family car maker. And we were talking to an American historian over the weekend, and he said that's really a thing of the past. Is it so, and what is replacing it, in your view?
Well, it's interesting. People often ask about younger people and do they have loyalty to brands. And, they don't have that same loyalty that I think you bring up as far as like you're always a certain type of car company over the course of years. But they do have loyalty. It's just that they make their decision much more quickly and based upon how easy access they have to information. So they may be willing to switch, but they're not frivolous. But they don't make that loyalty based just upon one factor, like, oh, my father bought a Cadillac, so I have to buy a Cadillac. They now have access to a lot more information, so they connect with a brand based upon a lot more things than something like that. They can know, oh, this is good for the environment, or, my friends have these cars, or whatever the factors may be. There's so much more information that loyalty comes from a lot of different points. So it's not just the same as, we've always done it this way for generations. It's a more focused origin of that loyalty, but it can be just as strong and in some ways even stronger. So loyalty is changing, but it's still there.
One interesting area, Craftsman, Sears and their Craftsman tools and their Kenmore appliances used to be you could only find them at a Sears, and now they're being dispersed into other channels. Do you think that's a smart decision on their part, or because in effect you're breaking the brands away from the distribution point?
Well, I don't want to pretend to have the definitive voice on that, but I think some of the reason behind that is the change in how products are distributed now, that you no longer need to go to a Sears to get Craftsman, not just because it's in other stores, but because you can get it online. People have many more access points to the end product, whereas I think stores like Sears, or JCPenney's or Macy's even, which were sort of these stores that housed a lot of brands within their one brand, now consumers can skip that middle person step, and that is a problem for the Macy's, JCPenney's, and Sears, but it gives consumers a direct access to those products. So it is, from Craftsman's perspective, it's smart to be available in more places, and the question is for the Searses of the world, like what is their role and how do they maintain some, connection to the consumer? That's their challenge.
Well, I don't know how this fits in with your thing, but just recently, Kroger's and Walgreens set up a deal where Kroger is going to put 2,000 square foot units inside Walgreens drugstores. I guess it's to your point. We're almost melding the line between what represented a brick store in the past and what it will represent in the future. Is that something which will have an effect? Buying Kroger food inside a drugstore, to me, seems such a change, but I guess the world is changing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, in some ways, it's this, aggregation of all things into one place. I still remember seeing a bank inside a supermarket for the first time. I forget what the brands were. It's interesting, and there are a lot of studies and surveys being done to see, for instance, if there's a Kroger inside a Walgreens, do people leave the Walgreens and think, oh, I just bought my groceries at Walgreens, or do they think I just bought my groceries at Kroger's? And so, that's a challenge for those two brands to sort out. I think from Walgreens' perspective, they want to be the place where people think I can go get all my Walgreens and I can also pick up, a pile of grapes and lettuce. And Kroger just wants to be in a place where they can still sell their products. So from a brand and a loyalty perspective, the big challenge will be on that Kroger, the unit inside the big one, to maintain some sort of distinctive identity and connection. And I think that's going to be a difficult thing to do, and that'll be an interesting change in the future.
Well, we're talking with a really articulate and knowledgeable guest, Jeff Kreiser. Jeff, let's go to the new battleground, the Internet, which is creating all sorts of new challenges and opportunities. And let's talk about it from a small business perspective. How can they identify the buying imperatives of customers they never touch or see?
That's a really interesting question, and there are a lot of tools out there nowadays to sort of capture the metrics and the data. You mentioned data earlier, and there's plenty of data out there to do, and then unfortunately, then you need to figure out how to analyze that data. I think that the number one thing, of course, any business is to have a good product or service, and then the idea of loyalty in particular has two components. One is getting customers that you don't have and then keeping them. I think that, small businesses in particular are probably very good at that second part, keeping them, building that relationship and that connection. But you're right to ask the question, how do you get these people that are out there? And it remains a bit of a wild west. Do you spend money on advertising on the internet, and what is the results? And you look at some of the news items with Facebook of the world and how their algorithms are manipulated, and it's a real challenge for people to know. And I think that the most important thing for small businesses to do is understand their customers as much as possible, because then they can focus on these various tools to know, I want to go after young mothers with 2 kids who need a bigger car, or I want to, whatever their audience is, their customers are, whatever their needs are, to be able to focus on that. I mean, the tools online are incredibly strong to really target people and their specific needs. And so the more you do the work before you get engaged with the internet and the online interfaces, the better you'll be in a position to take advantage of those tools.
Well, that's good advice. But if you go back to your original premise, which is if you identify things about a person, you can then focus your message in such a way as to encourage them to sell, if I'm hearing you correctly. Is that basically your basic theme?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one strategy. If you know who you want to reach, and what they're listening to, if you will, or what they're looking for, it's going to be easier to reach them. If you just sort of shout into the vast internet, you're not going to reach anyone. So the more specific you can be, the better. And that's not always possible for a small business that offers a general service, but for those that can sort of focus on who they want to reach, that's a good strategy.
Let me go 180 degrees. You were a comedian before you did this. My question I always ask comedians is, how has being comedy routines changed in the world today versus the world of our fathers?
I think, like most things, the change has been for the better, that we're more inclusive of different people's voices and perspectives. You will certainly talk to various comedians who might complain that they can't make the same jokes that they did a while ago, but I actually think of that as a good thing, because I think comedy, like any creative form, any art form, should evolve with the times. And there's plenty of things that are funny in the world without having to, say things that are isolating towards one group or another. I'm not in the camp of never point out the differences between people, but you can do so in a way that's self-aware. And I think that is a good thing that many of us, whether we're in comedy or not, are starting to grapple with, is just taking a moment's breath before we say something and think about how it might be received. One of my side gigs in the past was helping people with their communication skills, and we often said, to be focused on the other person, you will become a better communicator. So don't worry about your message. Worry about what the other person wants and thinks. And I think that's true whether you're communicating or selling a service or product. You think about what that person is getting from it, it'll be better. And for a comedian, we are very selfish. We are very focused on ourselves on stage. We want people to laugh at us and then look at us. But if we take a moment to think about what the audience is thinking and feeling a little bit more, I think that's going to elevate the experience for everyone. So I know that's a bit of a theoretical response to the question, but I think that comedy has evolved a little bit, and there are still people who tell what you might call old-time jokes, who I think are hilarious and have a great time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's been fun to see the different types of comedy that people have experimented with. It doesn't all work, and it's not all for everyone's taste. But the great thing about comedy is I think there is something out there for everyone.
There is. The reason I asked the question, I had a chance to watch an old kinescope of Sam Levinson. If you're probably too young to remember him, but he was a comedian who was often on the Ed Sullivan show. But his shtick was always pointing out how similar people were, especially Jews, Italians, and Irish. And we just saw it this weekend, and it was an amazing performance. 7 minutes of just nonstop hysteria, dealing with and all he was doing was pointing out how similar we were.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, we seem to be all talking about our differences, and that's why I brought it up. I know that's.
Well, I think that would be a good. Yeah, I think that would be great. I would love to try to track down that routine because I think that would be great.
It's at the Museum of Television on 56th Street, and I was just amazed by it. But that's not why you're here. Your name of your book again?
Dollars and Cents, as in common sense, SENSE, and the website is peoplescience.com.
Do you have any final thoughts for our small business audience?
I just think that this field of behavioral science, which we talk about on the peoplescience.com site, there are always these little nuggets that just, I think, can provide small businesses an opportunity to think about ways to experiment and test new ideas. Small businesses have the big advantage of being very nimble and can change and can tweak and can try things a lot more easily than a large business that has to go through 1,000 approvals and a billion forms of paperwork. And it's a great time now for experimentation, for just changing little things. And, I think that small businesses in particular should embrace their ability to experiment and try new ideas while staying sort of true to their identity. So if anything on our site or anything in the book or anything I've said today helps people get some ideas to do so, I will feel very blessed.
Well, Jeff Kreiser, thank you so much for being with us. It's been an illuminating time. A link to your website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future program, and you can tell us who you'd like to hear. Again, Jeff, it's been a real pleasure. And you have to come back sometime next year and talk further.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully, and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to Recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects, they're all here in Recalculating the book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on recalculating.biz.
Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. Is it time to get a real webmaster? You may find that you wear many different hats in running your business, but if the internet is an important part of your business strategy, then you might want to consider giving that hat to someone else to wear. You can buy some inexpensive internet packages, but they all have limitations. Some small business people get frustrated because of the limitation on formats. They feel like they're trying to put a round peg into a square hole. Check with other small business professionals and ask them, who are you using to run your website? Make some calls, set up some interviews, and tell candidates what you're looking for. Here is the tip of the day. Ask for references before you meet with those people. Check them out and see how they've done. Look at a minimum of 3 candidates if possible. The oldest and the biggest may not be the best fit for you. I'm Dan Perkins from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day.
Thank you for joining us on Recalculating. We hope the information you received on today's episode was helpful to you in starting and growing your business. Please go to our website, recalculating.biz, to contact us, to listen to past shows, and see special offers. Until next time, remember, if you grow, we grow. Join us next week for more helpful ideas to make your business a great success. Recalculating, a program designed to help you be successful.